Hello everybody, welcome to the weekend edition. My name is Merlin Rothfeld and it is the Trader Merlin Show. Happy Friday to everybody out there and cheers. Hope you all have a nice frosty cold beverage. Had a nice week out there. Interesting finish to this week, we'll say that. And for those that are wondering, today's choice is Four Roses. We're going to Four Roses single barrel today. Not too shabby. Alright, yeah, I saw Medic Man that says, Merlin, I got the hate mail ready to be fired out, coming to your inbox hot. Yeah, I got a ton. It's funny because I got a lot of really extremely positive stuff yesterday, and then of course you're going to get some bad stuff along the way with regards to some of my comments. And you know, my comments weren't meant to be anything malicious. Just saying, look, everybody needs to do their due diligence in reviewing or looking at whatever they're going to go, whatever they're going to buy, whatever they're going to do. Do your due diligence. I don't have a lot of information on people who are selling me products and services. But when I do have information that's readily available to me, like what I mentioned was in that court document, I should read through that and understand what it is I'm getting into. So that's pretty much all I'm going to say about that. I know I've had a lot of people prying, and I'm pretty sure those are minions. They're trying to get information, trying to get me to say something that is going to come across as antagonistic. And nothing of the sort. It's just simply buyer beware. Make sure you do your research and you understand what it is that you're buying. We'll maybe talk a little bit more about stock picking services later on, which is also another eye-opener. But we'll leave it at that. Probably better to take the high road on this one simply because, you know, do your due diligence. Look at the report. Okay, let's go. Let's start things off with a real quick wrap-up or review of what's going on this week in the marketplace. I'll start things off, obviously, by doing our trading week wrap-up. There was a good amount of stuff that came out this week that's noteworthy. I will start things off on our markets here. Now, crude oil obviously had a beautiful day. I was not in crude oil today, unfortunately. I really wanted to be because we came up to that $35 mark that I mentioned and then started to sell off. Had a very nice sell-out today. I mean, we were really tanking on crude oil, but the resilience intraday on crude oil is pretty awesome. Let me bring up a 5-minute chart here and show you that. Look at this sell-off. It was such a gorgeous move today in crude oil. Man, I mean, these are the ones you wait for, and unfortunately I was busy working on other content when this happened. So crude oil ending the day at 33.56 on the week. The best. It was the best performer of the week, and of course it's 4 weeks in a row. Let's go to a W, and you guys can see we've got 4 weeks in a row of huge moves to the upside, bringing about 13.58% for crude oil on the week. Not too shabby. I mean, this is probably the trade of the month right here, is just buying crude oil at $6.50 if you could get it because your companies were shutting you down. S&P also doing pretty well today, up 0.66%, still rallying right now. And really what it all boils down to was that the last minute surge, to me, that was what was most impressive about the ES. That last half hour was extremely powerful and just pushed this thing higher and higher and higher. So closing right near the high of the day, all in all looking great for the ES. Not looking good for my short positions, but we're not back up above that 29.77 yet. NASDAQ's your next one, up 0.7, finishing 94.21. 0.7%. Technically nothing really noteworthy there, although it is a really strong looking hammer formation. For those of you who know the way I look at hammers, that's not a hammer. It's got to be at the bottom of a downtrend, so it's still a powerful formation either way. Gold, and to my friend who's out there selling gold coins today, good luck to you. I found this was actually really interesting. So first off, let me tell you what happened to the spot price of gold here. 1734 is where it finished at, up 0.74 for gold futures. Now, I found this really interesting. So a friend of mine's got a few gold coins, and she wanted to sell some to lock in some profits. But yeah, go for it. So we found a coin dealer that I use down here in Southern California. Everything's going fine, and she didn't really know what to do. So I kind of said, call them up and just say, hey, how much would you charge? How much would you buy a Cougaran, American Eagles, or these different makes of coins? So she called, and I said, my gut feeling, right now we're trading at the time was 37.34. I said, my gut feeling is that you're going to be getting probably 1,550 or 1,600 for these coins, because the dealer's going to take a spread, right? It's just business. Remember, we were at 17.34. So she calls me back and she says, well, they're going to give me 17.50. And I went, hold on a second. My basic business essence just disappeared here, because now I'm looking at a market where these dealers are paying more for gold, for the physical coins. I found that really, really remarkable. Who knows what that says about the spot price of gold, but maybe these guys know something I don't, because I tell you what, if I'm a businessman and you want to come and sell me a car that I can buy right now for $1,700, but I'm going to pay you more than it's worth, that seems kind of awkward out there, the way that would work. So Just a weird thing I saw in the coin industry today. All right, let me go back to our charts here, and we will go to our final two. Russell 2000 on the week, great performance, up 9% on the week. Technically, from the day, looks good as well. We did breach the highs from yesterday. The next big obstacle that you can have here for the Russell is going to be these highs right around 20. Wouldn't that be nice? The Russell's at 2,000 something. 17. Dyslexia setting in today? I don't know what's going on. 1,370 is that point in the price chart here where we're looking at some challenges for the Russell 2000. And judging by the way this thing is building, it's building strength. It's one of those ones that, like Corey Lane would say, I'm waiting for that breakout trade. So wait for it to consolidate a little bit here. It looks to me like 1370 breaks, and all of a sudden you're off to the races to 1500 on the Russell 2000. So probably one of the better technically looking ones. Next one here is Bitcoin, the B to the C, B to the T to the C. Sell-off wise, it's been an ugly week, finishing worst performer by a good margin on the week, but its intraday was up 1.32%. We're back above that 1,000 mark, or 9,000 mark. We were briefly below 9,000. Right now we're at 9,195. Okay, I will run through a lot of these questions. I know that there's going to be a ton of big if. It wasn't the four roses, my friend. I just got a lot on my mind. Part of it is like what to compartmentalize and what to verbalize here on the show. I'm going through a bit of a mental dialogue right now. So I'm doing all the switching, I'm conversing, answering questions, and then also planning my next comment here, which to prevent myself from getting into trouble with the minions. All right, Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies had a lot of questions over the past week, and I know I don't give them their due attention on the show. I know some of you could care less about cryptos. I think others of you really kind of feel that there is a potential in society, or certainly a need for these cryptocurrencies. So I thought I would go to a couple listener questions that came through on the topic, briefly go through those, and of course, if you have questions, feel free to type those in. I'll do my best to monitor those as they come through here. So the first one we had was from Ron. Ron says, today I placed my first crypto trade by purchasing some Ethereum, that's ETH. Yes, by looking at the chart, it is a bit expensive. However, my intention is to move the Ethereum to reserve.org. Thoughts on Reserve? So first off, let's take a step back and look at the whole crypto space here, because obviously there are two lead dogs out there. Number one, without a doubt, is Bitcoin. It's the largest percentage of the market cap by a good margin, and I'll show you that here in a second. The second one is Ethereum. Now, if you have not done it yet, I would encourage you to go take the cryptocurrency class that I built for OT Academy and for Online Trading Academy. It's free. You can go to otacademy.com. Watch it all. It'll definitely bring you up to speed on the industry as a whole, transaction, storage, spending, all that stuff. And it might be beneficial to many of you in understanding the space. Now, one of the big things that we're hearing about are stable coins. Now, what some of you may not know what a stable coin is. A stable coin is simply a token or a coin, depending on if it has its own blockchain. If it has its own blockchain, it's a coin. If it's on someone else's blockchain, it's usually a token. And that's important because the reserve.org here is the reserve are actually tokens. So, right there, you already have to have the distinction between the architecture that these cryptocurrencies are built on. Is it a token or is it coin? Because if it's a coin, it's got its own network, its own infrastructure. If it's a token, it's on someone else's network, right? So whose network is it on? You have to look at the reliability and trustworthiness of that network. In this case, Reserve is actually on the Ethereum blockchain. So they're tethered to the Ethereum blockchain. So should something happen to Ethereum, then your Reserve tokens could have some issues, which is one of the reasons I love Ethereum, because if you think of it, there's probably 1,000 or more different tokens that are attached to the Ethereum blockchain. So let me ask you, if you have 1,000 different, let's call them companies, because ideally each token is going to be a company, and they're all attached to Ethereum, do you think that there's a vested interest on the community or those 1,000 plus businesses to make sure that Ethereum does not fail? Because if they do fail, then all of a sudden your token is useless, worthless, and you can't even transact on it. So to me, that's one of the reasons I have Ethereum in a big way, is because I think that there is a reliability on the industry. Think of it kind of like this. It's an abstract example, but I think we can all relate since we talk about trading so much. Every token that's going to be traded is going to be transacting through that Ethereum blockchain. Think of it like a stock. So if we take all the stocks that are traded on the New York Stock Exchange, right? Those would be considered a token because they're traded on that exchange. And the exchange itself would be Ethereum. So everything transacts there. Well, what happens if the exchange shuts down? Can you trade your shares of General Electric? Can you trade your shares with Goldman Sachs? All right, you need the exchange there to function. So to me, this is why I have a second largest portion of my portfolio. Actually, it might be third, depends on how they've changed recently, is in Ethereum. I think that there's a lot of prospect for it going forward, but there are some big issues there. Yeah, I love that too. Vitalik, make it big again. I think I said this on Power Trading Radio, but if you guys want a real treat and watch a true savant, somebody who I believe is on that autistic spectrum, but as soon as you get him going into a talk about code, programs, money things, the guy is an absolute just brilliant, and it's crazy to watch him speak. His name is Vitalik Buterin. Pretty cool. Let me see. All right, I'll get to some of these questions here in a second. Let me finish with this reserve thing. So why do we have all these different coins and tokens, and each one of them is usually representing something different. Like Bitcoin is really meant to be a peer-to-peer transaction system. For me, it's digital gold. It's not really meant to be high transactions. It's store of value. Of course, we can make the argument that store of value is way too volatile. The issue is many people believe that Bitcoin will be a currency like the dollar. Probably not going to happen simply because the volatility of Bitcoin just wouldn't be suitable as a currency. It's one of the things we enjoy about the US dollar is it is relatively stable. It fluctuates, right? Over time it's going to go down, yes, but it does have a stability to it that, I go in today to buy a Snickers bar, it's 50 cents. Tomorrow I go and buy a Snickers bar, it might be 51, that's fine. But I don't want to go in the next day and that Snickers bar is $1.50. It's like, wait a minute, it was 50 cents yesterday. That would be the problem if we had Bitcoin as our currency. So what a lot of people are looking for is a stability coin or a currency, cryptocurrency that is not a fiat currency. Because if you're like Brendan, if you're like myself, and you really hate fiat currencies, they're a necessary evil, then you look for an alternative. And stable coins are that. All stable coins is a tokenized asset that's usually pegged to the dollar. So this reserve.org, I don't know the infrastructure of it too well. I didn't really dig deeper into it. I'm a little skeptical on it because they have two different versions. One is a free floating one, and the other one is pegged to $1, so it'll stay right at $1. There are a lot of other ones out there that are probably a bit more proven. USDC is probably the one that I would do just because you have Coinbase backing it, and that will keep its stability. Here's part of the problem I have with it, though. Unless you can pull it off an exchange and keep it in your own private wallet, I'm not that interested. Because the goal here, at least part of the goal, if I was to make a pie chart of my objectives with cryptocurrency, one of the major things is obviously I want it to appreciate in value. That's probably number one. Number two, I want the ability to start to build a pool of assets that the government can't touch. Who the hell knows what's going to happen? Right now we're on, call it quasi-martial law, being told we have to stay in our homes in specific parts of the country, which I believe is not that necessary. What happens down the road when the government says, I'm confiscating your bank accounts like they did in Cyprus and Argentina? What happens when they devalue my currency and say, hey, you know what, we're going to cut your investments in half because we can? I don't trust the governments. I think that there's a danger out there. So part of it is having these assets digitally where the government can't get them, can't touch it. Now, if you keep it at reserve.org, it's going to could get shut down by the government. If you're going to keep it at Coinbase, that can get shut down by the government. You're going to keep it at Binance, that could get shut down by the government. If it's in your own possession, a private wallet, you have your own, whether it's hard storage, like a little nano ledger drive, which I could probably show you here if you guys want it. It's actually in the drawer over to my right. Or it's on a paper wallet. As long as you have possession of it, it can't be taken away from you. If it's on an exchange, that's the risk. So I like that you're taking some capital, putting it in Ethereum. You might want to just leave it in Ethereum. If you're worried about price stability, I would probably go with one that is more tested. These guys sound like they're relatively new. I'll do some more research. I downloaded their white paper to check them out. But they're certainly not one of the major players right now, but they looks like they're trying to get bigger and bigger and bigger. Yeah, uses Trezor. I've got, all right, I'm going to bring it up here real quick. One sec, guys. I'm pulling my drawer. I have these. This is a little Nano Ledger S, right? And basically it looks like a USB thumb drive. On this one, I have my Ethereum and my Ripple. I have two cryptocurrencies on this one. That's probably about $50,000 worth. On the one over there, I've got Bitcoin. I don't even remember what I have on this one. Bitcoin, Litecoin. That's why I put tags on them. Bitcoin, Bitcoin Gold, Bitcoin Cash, and Litecoin are on this one. So, this is in my possession. They can't do anything. I guess you could say they could steal this. They could take this away from me. but they wouldn't be able to get into it. They'd have to have the codes, and I have the codes. So unless they get the codes, they're not getting that money. That, to me, is one of the beauties of cryptocurrency, and that's a big part of that pie chart of why I'm in that space. Okay. Yes, Daniel, yeah, you're the OTA guy? Well, thank you. I guess I am the OTA guy. I've worked there for a long time, and I still love what's going on with OTA. By the way, I hope you guys have seen the video with Alan Dershowitz standing up for what's going on with Online Trading Academy, saying this is just an absolutely unbelievable overstep of power by the FTC, and it's great. I really am I'm happy to see someone of his reputation and power and influence join this fight, because I think what's going on right now with OTA and FTC is an absolute joke. You got a handful, and I'm literally a handful, 4, 5, 10 people complaining. How many people complain about Harvard? I think that was Dershowitz's point. It's like, how many people complain about Harvard? There's books about how the school is terrible. So what? FTC didn't shut them down and say no more lawyers for the world. What they're doing, the FTC is doing to the community, to me is a travesty. There we had a fantastic community going on, and it'll get back there. Just hopefully we can get our day in court and get past all this stuff. Chris, I'm saying that's probably more closer to $100,000 in the drawer. And here's the thing, Chris, that was a good point there. He's thinking, where's your address? You can probably find it online. You're welcome to come and steal those, because it's going to do you no good. You could not get into those drives without the codes, which I have, and they're not here. So, and I have the backup codes, so all I have to do is go to my special place where I keep those, and I can access those coins from anywhere. It's great. All right, second question here, which is, I don't want to spend too much time on cryptos. I know I'm probably going to bore some of you guys to death, so I apologize for that. But others might be interested. This one's from Irina. So, Merlin, what seems to be the correlation between Bitcoin and other markets? This is interesting. I think this is something that Brendan and I were talking about a while back. And it's interesting when we look at some of the relationships between cryptos in the overall market. There are certain periods where they fall together. And when the markets were crashing in February and March, you saw Bitcoin take a big dive. And I personally think that was just because people were going, uh-oh, I need to get some assets and liquid capital. So they were selling some of the cryptos. The whole crypto space took a big dump. But when we take a longer term perspective and look at the charts of Bitcoin compared to, let's say, the S&P 500, there isn't really a tight correlation. Brendan and I were thinking a while back that it's actually the opposite. We thought that there'd be an inverse relationship where the market started to tank, people would be going into cryptos. But that it was in place for a while, but then it just kind of changed. So I don't put a lot of emphasis on that type of analysis, but I'll show you the charts here so you understand what I'm saying. And by the way, thank you guys so much. Many of you commented that you preferred, I know there was most people prefer the white charts. And then from all the comments in the chat yesterday, as well as the dozens that were emailed me last night, most of you said colored bars. So these are the charts we'll be using from now on gotta catch myself, on TraderMerlin. Okay, so let me put these side by side for you. On the top chart, I have Bitcoin on a daily basis. And on the bottom, I'll put the S&P 500. And let's try to get these to their exact same time frame. It's gonna have to be a little bit more compact there. I believe that is lined up. Okay, so you can see right now both of these charts are representing the exact same time frame, and you can see that from March, February, actually mid-February, that's where things really started to sell off for both, right? The equity markets and for Bitcoin. Bitcoin has actually recouped more than the S&P 500, but back here in April, May, June, July, August of last year, there really wasn't any real correlation, right? There wasn't back then. And I agree with what Brendan just wrote here. He says, yeah, now there seems to be a little bit more correlation. I agree. Right now it seems to be following markets more. And you know what? Maybe, just maybe, this is that point where we start to see institutions become more of a player. I know it's one of those dreaded things, like why would we want to have institutions in here? Look, I'd rather see institutions in here because I can start to see their footprints a little better. I can start to see when those quote-unquote whales, which that's all a big institution is a whale. They just call it whales in the crypto space. They call it institutions in the trading space. So we can start to see where those moves happen once we get institutions. And the more that it starts to follow the market, the more I'm inclined to believe that it's institutionally driven. Because they're just saying, okay, market's moving up, let's buy these baskets of assets. And that's going to include some crypto ETFs or some funds, might even be Bitcoin futures, etc. So there is a tighter correlation now. But I wouldn't put too much emphasis on it. You know, there was a very strong correlation in the past where if you saw the US dollar rallying, that usually means that the equity markets would be selling off. That is also kind of broken. And you know, this is why I love doing these types of shows, is because we have things that are normal in trading and investing. It seems like it works every day and every day and every day, and then it doesn't work anymore. Those paradigms, or not paradigms, those connections sometimes get severed, and they might stay broken for quite some time before they revert back to normal. That's just part of the nature of the beast, which is why we have to be flexible in what we do and be ready to change almost instantly our decisions, our path. The only thing we cannot be changing is our risk management. We have to make sure that we keep those risk management rules in place so that whatever that market throws at us, we'll never get burned badly. All right. Joseph says, Merlin, do you trade Bitcoin futures? Which is better? I don't trade Bitcoin futures. I have not traded Bitcoin futures. I should, just to say that I traded Bitcoin futures, but I haven't. I actually I'm a hodler. I'm a buy it when I think I want to buy it and hold on to it for some time. Usually my entry is buying Bitcoin, and if I want to, I'll move it to other things. There are some other cryptocurrencies, and actually there's a lot of them out there. The one that I actually had the highest hopes for just isn't really doing anything. And it has to do with this. I'm a believer that at some point there will be a cryptocurrency credit card. There will be a Visa that is basically like it's a cryptocurrency backed. So there's no longer the need for the centralized database that Visa or MasterCard or Diner Club or Discover, those are centralized databases. We talked about this a while back. I'm more interested in having a network where it's decentralized and no longer have to support Visa, MasterCard, those types of companies. The fees would be a lot less. But how can that happen? The only way that that can happen is if one of those cryptocurrency networks could hold a substantial transactional volume. Right now you're looking at Bitcoin, which can, it struggles to handle a few 100,000 transactions a day. Few 100,000 transactions a day? You look at the number of Visa transactions just here in Orange County in a day, and it's probably well over a couple 100,000. Just Visa alone. So there's no way that Bitcoin could ever be that mainstream currency or cryptocurrency that it'll be like a credit card. However, take a peek at this one. Let me see if I can bring this one up for you guys. There are Blocktivity. All right, this is just an interesting website which graphs the most active cryptocurrencies from a volume and transaction perspective. And you notice that one of these is clearly standing out. Look at the activity that happened on the EOS network. 65,000 pieces of activity. I don't know exactly how they differentiate here, but it's by far the leader in transactional volume every single day. Its record, I believe its record transactions was 73 million in a day, which is nuts. That's now getting more towards Visa level. None of these other ones can even come close to competing there. Not even remotely close. So for me, that's why EOS has been one that I've had in my portfolio. Of course, it's trading at just a couple of cents. But the reason for that is I thought this might be the one to step up and take that role of creating a cryptocurrency type Visa. And I really wish that they would, because they're the only guys that have that sort of infrastructure to handle the number of transactions. You look down here at Bitcoin. Bitcoin handled 323,000 transactions in the last 24 hours. Right? 800,000 is the most they've ever done. And the network is completely bogged down. It is slow. Yeah, Brennan says EOS, XLM, and Ripple. Yeah, I'm kind of not liking Ripple as much as I used to. Ripple, I believe, was got a little bit overhyped. And judging by their actions and how many Ripples are out there, it kind of, I don't know, I'm not that interested in anymore. The other piece for that, Ron was asking about the reserve token. Here's the other part that I don't like. This is kind of hard for you guys to see. Let me bump it up. So this is the token called Reserve. It's Reserve Rights, RSR, which was from reserve.org, which is where Ron was thinking about parking some of this. Here is one of my major problems on this one. It's a huge problem in my opinion. I think you guys can read that. You see here it says, in circulation, circulating supply. This is how many shares are out there right now. In circulation. 6.8 billion. I'll call it 6.85 billion. You're like, wow, that's a lot. Yeah, the total supply is 100 billion. That means that there is 93.5, or is it 93.5? 93.5 billion of these things somewhere else, shelved. And my question is, if they start rolling this out to the public, if they start bringing more supply to the circulating supply, price is going to get crushed on this one. So I'm a little bit nervous on this RSR one, Ron. Again, that's a red flag for me, is how many supply is out there. Some are fixed, like this apparently is fixed, but you got to dig deeper into it to get the actual numbers. All right, what I got here? Merlin, what is the biggest purchase you've ever made with crypto? It wasn't a purchase that was made. It was a transfer. I transferred from an online account to my Nano Ledger, and at the time it was $70,000. I was shaking. Like a leaf. And what's crazy is it took a little while for that transaction to happen, and I was like, oh, you've got to be kidding me. I sent to the wrong address. So when you do these types of things, when you're sending transactions like that, guys, especially with cryptocurrencies, I encourage you to send a tiny, tiny little amount, like 10 cents worth, and just wait for it to get there. And okay, because if you type in that address wrong and you send it to the wrong, one digit out of that huge string is wrong, it's gone. It's freaking gone. There's nothing you can do about it. It's a weird situation. It's a little bit nerve-wracking, and you can't call customer support and say, hey, I meant that to be a capital P, but I put lower. Can I get that back? Nope. And it's probably not actually going to anyone. It's just going to an address that nobody will ever have, because the number of addresses is so huge. It's just going to sit out in a digital space forever and ever and ever, and you never get it. So yeah, that scared the hell out of me. Is Cardano still on the ground floor after 2 years? Yeah, there was a lot of issues with Cardano. I don't know. They've kind of fallen off my radar recently. There you go. Good question. Koja. And Koja, your question's coming up here in a second. He says, Merle, what do you think of Libra, the Facebook one? Excellent question. Thank you for asking. I appreciate that one. I wrote it down here because I wanted to get it. Look, the Libra thing, talk about ambitious. Talk about a wonderful project on paper. What that would essentially be doing would be creating a digital dollar. And the government, I don't think the government would let that stand. I think at some point we might see that happen. I think what it does is it creates borderless countries, governments, etc. We can now be moving money around in split seconds. Now we have that ability, right? We can use our phones and use Venmo and things like that. But I think Libra would have taken it to a whole other level transactionally. Now, that to me is a dead in the water one until it gets past Congress, and I don't think Congress will accept it until they have their own digital currency. I think that was a comment that just came in right here. If it was Brendan, I think you had it right there. Speed, scalability. Visa's making their own fiat, right? So yeah, of course, Visa is going to be chomping at the bit to get this done. They want to do it as quickly as possible so they can now be a little bit more of a player if that new contender like EOS steps up. So, I don't know. I think you're going to see a lot of these projects. What worked so well with Libra and what made it so interesting was just the backing. The sheer number of corporations backing it and promoting it made it sound really good. But remember, the part of the reason that I prefer cryptocurrencies, or I like cryptocurrencies, is the decentralized aspect. I don't want this to be controlled by Facebook. I mean, I don't know if I want to be involved with a currency that Facebook has access to all my transactions and is really kind of controlling the cryptocurrency itself. That to me is a red flag in a big way. That's why I love Bitcoin. There is not, Microsoft's not in there going, we control Bitcoin. They don't. They don't have access to it. They have access to their own Bitcoin if they have any. So there you go. That's my thoughts on Libra. What up, TJ the Chart Master? Joining us today. Yeah, Brendan says, once you make the gain, you owe the taxes. If you lose it, you are... Yep. Well, I don't know how that works, actually. I could make the argument that if I lost my private key and couldn't access my Bitcoin anymore, then technically I lost that. So I could use that as a write-off. I don't know. I've talked to CPA about that one, but I think that might be it. All right. There were some more questions that came through here. Let me bring up my screen. So going back to Arena's question, not a lot of real correlation or tight correlation there anyway with the cryptocurrency markets and the equity markets, at least right now. That may change in the future as they become a little bit more institutionalized. All right. Thomas says, can you believe how well Lululemon is doing? Yeah, this is a great one. I had a Lululemon chart up here earlier. Unbelievable. I don't have any explanation as to why this would possibly happen. And the sad part is right now, for me, it's untouchable. And what do I mean by untouchable? If I bring this out and bring it up to a monthly, so you guys can see the history, the entire history of Lululemon going back into 2007, where's my supply level? Where am I thinking about going short on this one? It's a crapshoot. So, that's not going to happen. This one is one that you just have to leave alone. and just sit and watch it. But it's, moving from 130 to 270 in 2 months is a pretty impressive run for Lululemon. I guess this is more people working out at home. I'm not sure, but wow, what an amazing move on Lululemon, erasing all the losses that it sustained in that crash from February 20th to March 20th. So 1 month down, and it's been up ever since. So pretty amazing. Yeah, I don't really have any logic or justification for why that is, but Lululemon just absolutely rocking. All right, there were a couple more here, and then I'll go open it up to the floor. That was Lululemon. Stefan says, can you elaborate specifically on how you ID supply and demand zones? The answer there technically is going to be no. I'm not going to elaborate on it. But remember, identifying a supply and demand or demand zone is a combination of a few things. One of the things we know, anybody knows, is buyers and sellers drive markets. We talked about that the other day when I gave that little presentation on volume at a real basic level. It's the degree to which those buyers and sellers come into the party or come into that trade that give us clues as to where price may be headed. So there's patterns that form. So obviously, if I go out there and I'm buying my, 5,000 shares of Microsoft, I'm nobody. 5,000 of Microsoft's not going to, it won't even move the bid and ask spread. But when someone comes in there and is buying 5 million shares of Microsoft, they're going to leave a track. They're going to leave a footprint out there. And there's certain things that you can look at price and observe through price and say, you know what, that's an institutional order. Not guaranteed, but it's much clearer that there's something there stopping that than there would be at other points of that chart. So that's part of the reason, my Trading Academy has their odds enhancers where you run through this checklist of kind of things you're analyzing. And the whole point of that is to qualify good zones and discredit bad zones. So everybody will look at a price chart differently. I'll give you an example for everybody that's watching. Let's go pick up any symbol. Let's go to Urban Outfitters. Urban getting beat on earnings. ERBN. So here's our full screen of Urban Outfitters. A lot of people will look at this price chart and say, "Oh, I see a supply level, right?" And someone might put that supply level. I'll do it with this tool here, just to make it rough. Somebody might go out here and say, "Well, I see a big supply zone right here, right? It's that previous high." All right, depends on how you want to draw it. We'll just put it right there. Somebody else might come out here and say, "You know what? There is a supply zone that is right in here, which is even better." All right. Other people may come in and say, "You know what? I don't agree with what you're saying. I think you got a supply zone right in here." And then you got somebody else who's saying, it's right here and we're right at it, so I'm going to use that as a breakout. The truth is, every one of these, any point could be considered a supply zone that I've drawn here. But there's grading that's done that would say one is better than the other. And of course, it might take you a long time to get up to some of those higher levels, but some of those ones that are higher up, for me personally, are much better. So, what am I looking at? I'm looking at the way that things move from a level. I'm looking how they perform at a level. What's the price action look like, especially when you break apart those candles? There's a lot of criteria that goes into determining what that is, but that's about as detailed as I'm going to get. Obviously, I'm encouraging people to get education and understand how to do this stuff, so I'm not going to do that on this show. But that's the basics of it. It's saying, I know that there's something there that has caused these specific securities to move the way that they did. The one that stands out the most to me, the one that I like the best on this one, personally, not that one. This one's good, but not that great. And this one's not that best. I like that one right there. And I am probably going to get other people that go, "Well, that's not how I was taught." That is absolutely fine with me. This is where I would be making that trade. This is where I'd be looking at. And that's why markets function, because different people look at different things. Now, here's the other thing I want to talk about real quick before we move on. One of the things that I get extremely annoyed about is how people will hold somebody else on a pedestal as being this amazing trader, right? And this industry is fraught with them. There's tons of them out there like, "Oh my gosh, this individual is so good, I have to subscribe to their service." And what they do in that service, they're going to charge you a ton of money for it. And what they'll do is they're going to call out levels or zones that are so far away from current price that by the time it gets there, you probably forgot about them. And then what they'll do is they will pull up their trading records, if they even trade live, which is questionable because most of them aren't going to trade live in front of you. They'll do it in a sim, and then they finally have a nice winning trade on. They'll log into that account and show you that one winning trade, but not show you the other losers. And by the time it gets to those levels, which they said a week ago, a month ago, If it works, they'll bring it back into discussions. And see, guys, see the trade? We called this level. There it was. Do we see it? We made the trade, and there's profit that I made on it after the fact. It'd be beautiful if those services that did that had it all live all the time. And you saw exactly when those trades went in, not after the fact, cherry-pick numbers to make those numbers look better. Most trading services are doing just that. They're cherry-picking information to look good. They'll have 4 or 5 separate accounts, so that they'll move from account to account. So whichever one has the winning trade on, they'll now show you that winning trade. But the other account might have some losing trades in it. We don't want to show those people that one. We'll just bring in the good stuff. And this is a problem in the industry, and I wish that this is something that regulators would look at as well. Is when somebody is marketing themselves or a company, and that's their whole goal is that piece. Let's look at the numbers. The actual numbers don't lie out there. So be careful about that when you are signing up for anything. Just check, look at the numbers, look at the data, look at the facts, and see what's really out there. Okay, let's see. What else do we got? TJ the Chart Master. Good. Yeah, and I love how some of you guys say, hey, I like that zone. That was a good zone. Some of you might not. Some of you might like, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with having your own zones. What's more important? I'm going to ask you guys this one. What's more important? And I want to get you guys to say in here. Is it more important to have the perfect strategy for picking zones and levels? Or is it more important to have a solid risk management strategy? Which one you think is better? I guess, is it offense or defense? Is it better to have the best strategy out there for picking and finding zones and trades? Or is it better to have solid risk management in your corner? Offense or defense, guys? What do you guys think? I'm hoping the lag time's not too late here. I've got to go in slow. You guys are still talking about that level up there on Urban? Cool. All right, well, it might be a little lagging here before I get some reviews to that question. For those that are experienced traders, you understand strategy's great, but I could also make the strategy of throwing darts. I could literally do it, and without risk management, it's all for naught. I tried to get a grant from an Italian university when I was teaching in Italy, and I said, hey, do me a favor, guys. Give me $15,000 for an education experience. I'll do it with your students. We'll write a paper on the results. There we go. Yeah. Antonio's man in my corner. Defense wins games, which is why the 49ers brought on another defensive lineman. Let's go Niners. They won because of defense, not offense. If they just stepped up their offense, the 49ers are an example of trading at its finest right now. Yes, I brought my team in. Suck it, TJ. He's a Raiders fan. No one likes the Raiders anyway. Move to Vegas, you losers. I'm just kidding. The 49ers have struggled for years as a football team. I know some of you foreigners going, football like the round ball or the one that looks like an egg? Yeah, American football. They built a defense that's arguably one of the best in the NFL. Now, their offense isn't that great. It's run-of-the-mill average. But if their defense is so good, it got them to the Super Bowl. So if I can just take my offense, which we'll call our strategy in trading, and move that up a little bit, research, journal, make adjustments, and all of a sudden I take it from lackluster and mediocre to, hey, it's pretty good, you're winning that Super Bowl. As long as you have that combination there, you're doing great. But most important, if nobody can score on you, they can't win. If you don't lose money, then you can make money much easier. I mean, it's a simple analogy. Oh, now you guys are calling the Santa Clara 49ers? Come on, Tom. Oh, boy, there we go. I started a football discussion, and all of a sudden it just turned to hell in a handbasket. That's how quickly things change out there, folks. Seahawks, where's the block button? I am totally blocking. Medic, you're done. You're never coming back. Seahawks fan. Hi, my name's Pete Carroll, and I completely destroyed a college university football program through lying. I'm sorry. We'll change the discussion here. Oh, that's what happens on a Friday afternoon. Okay, let me go to, I think I had one more. I want to make sure I get to this one last question. It was a doozy. If I remember correctly, it was a long-winded one, so let me see if I can get there. Yeah, it's a long one. So for the podcasters, I want to read you a story. This is from Steve. He says, it appears that markets are becoming less and less correlated to the economy. If that's the case, it will become more and more important to just read the charts and use the economy data less and less. Black swan events may just be knee-jerk reactions and have no long-term effects on the markets. I actually agree with you. I think that, at least from my experience, those black swan events don't have long-term effects on the markets. They generally are forgotten about. You guys remember a few flash crashes, that's a tough one to say 3 times, over the past few years. No one really remembers those. We just remember there was a flash crash, but not when it was, how it happened, what the numbers were. We're going to remember this event because obviously it's not just the market going down. It's tied to us being quarantined and wearing masks and freaking out about touching or seeing anybody. We've all become hermits. We keep it up. We're going to look like Frodo Baggins with hairy feet and little circular dungeon holes in the ground. But anyway, I think that the black swan events will always be there. This, is arguable as a black swan. Certainly it was because of how fast it moved to the south side. But I think we'll remember it. What I like about that comment here is we are becoming less and less tied to the economic data. And that's simply because the government and the Fed have become way too involved, in my opinion. You guys might differ here. In manipulating markets and preventing them from going down. Now, we certainly have seen governments and Fed in the past somewhat control those, trying to move the markets in their direction, but they didn't really overly influence. Nowadays, it's just like, just follow the Fed, right? Whatever the Fed is going to do, that's where the markets are going to go, and obviously the Fed is going to keep pushing the market up. So, to me, that's the new normal, at least for now. I personally am hoping that something happens. I don't know how or what it would be because it would have to be a legislative type of thing. I'm hoping that at some point there's some legislation that says, look, there are certain things, boundaries that the Fed can't cross, that the Fed cannot do. I think it's going way overextending itself, and I think down the road, it might be 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, we could find ourselves in some significant problems because of the devalue in the currency, the circulation of creation of more currency put in the money supply, and just maybe rampant inflation at some point. I don't know what the impacts are because we've never seen a situation like this. But yeah, right now we are shrugging off the economic data like nothing. I mean, we hit 16% unemployment. Really? Or is it 14? I forget all these numbers. I think it's 14% unemployment. 16% decline in retail sales. And you have a market that's ripping towards all-time highs. It can only be because of manipulation, and that is Fed and government manipulation. Teresa, I am. What gave it away? My fro not doing it for you? I had somebody on Twitter today told me I dyed my hair. Yeah, I went out and purposely dyed my hair salt and pepper so I look more distinguished. Yeah, I might actually go and get a haircut here soon. Look, guys, any questions that you got coming in here? Now that I've pissed off a whole bunch of football fans, go Chiefs. You guys got lucky in that Super Bowl, by the way. We gave that one to you. That was just us going, here, you know what? We don't want to stick to what's won the game. We were running the ball. We're going to start passing now. Just run the ball. Anyway. Any other questions you guys want me to go over since I have some free time here? And I know that Big Ed wants to go an hour. Otherwise, I'm going to go to another listener question. You know what? Koja, I'm going to do this. While you guys type in your questions, Koja sent this one in yesterday. He says, please explain more hawkish or dovish and how it will impact the market. Okay. It's a common phrase you've heard out there, and I'm sure most of you have heard it. Hawkish or dovish is something you hear about the central bankers, the Fed. What's their position on the market at any moment in time? And what it pertains to is interest rates. Yeah, you can make some good money with haircuts right now. Thank you, Teresa. If the Fed or Fed chairman were to be hawkish, and usually they don't say I'm hawkish, but the industry will say he's being hawkish or dovish. If someone's hawkish, what that means is they're looking at raising rates. Right now, we don't have hawkish central bankers at all. They're dovish. Dovish central bankers want to lower rates, right? They want to get them as low as possible because what that does is that generally weakens the dollar, which makes our exports much more desirable and acts as an economic stimulus. So it's good for business, theoretically. It's bad for the US dollar, and in theory, it's supposed to help deflation if they're dovish, meaning they cut rates and drop them down. If they're hawkish, again, that means that they're looking to fly. They're looking for those rates to move to the upside, and they would do that to to strengthen the U.S. dollar. All right. Sometimes there's periods you want to strengthen the U.S. dollar. It would also help with inflation. If we start to get high inflation, one of the cures for that is to raise interest rates significantly. One of the direct consequences of that is you will have a weaker economy. So as we have a strong dollar, because rates are high, that impacts business. The higher the dollar is, that means the less of the world can buy of our goods and services. So that's a real quick, down and dirty, easy explanation of hawkish versus dovish. So Koja, thank you for the question. All right, were there any last minute questions? Just hope to crash soon. We got a lot of Raider fans out there. I'll tell you what, I think it was a brilliant idea to move them to Vegas because I'm in California and I hate the Raiders, but I will actually go to a Raiders game if they play in Vegas. Why not? What else are you going to do? Oh, TJ, he's just digging deep today. He says, when's Fish going to play a show again? Yeah, you notice the posters, TJ? I got one for you, TJ. When's Kanye West going to come out with a good song? Oh, there we go. Oh, got him. All right, no questions come through? You know I'm going to just end the show here. We got time. Send something in if you got it. Smoke them if you got them. All right, okay, so Bill says, how likely do you think the government is to steal our money with Dodd-Frank? Somebody said the other day, I made comments about, I think that trading and investing in the financial world is the most corrupt, deceptive, lying, cheating, thieving industry in the world. And someone messaged me says, you want to be careful, I'm fearful for you. Don't worry about it. They're not worried about me. I'm a small voice in a very, very, very big pond. Government stealing our money? I can make the argument that they're stealing it every day through taxation. You know, we could go on a total political stage here, and I certainly never like to go down those roads in the show. But could they, seize assets? Certainly they could. Obviously, in a country that has more guns than any other country in the world, probably not a good idea to start seizing people's assets because there will be an uprising. But it's always theoretical. Hopefully, hopefully it doesn't get to that point. But yeah, the government can. It makes me nervous it makes me more nervous because the industry is rewarding these major corporations at the expense of taxpayers and you and me, and also small businesses. I mean, look what's happening right now. Small businesses are dead in the water, yet big business is going to be open, right? Oh, Walmart, yeah, you can stay open. Oh, because I have food in my store. Oh, Home Depot, you can stay open, but a lot of other places have to shut down. So, you saw Lowe's earnings. Home Depot didn't have the best earnings, but they still made some good money. As we looked at their earnings calendar this quarter, you look at TJ Maxx, Ross Stores, Kohl's, anything to do with retail apparel stores. Foot Locker reported today, dead in the water, horrible. It's not good. Unfortunately, that is, to me, government-led. They've caused this by quarantining and forcing us to stay at home and all this stuff, and this fear about viruses. Okay, Dave says, Merlin, do you think that novices should still be steering clear of current market volatility, or are we closer to normal? Well, that's a good question. Let's look at the ATR. I'll show you on the market what's been happening, at least with regards to the price chart. So I'll bring up, let me bring up the S&P, make this full screen again. I'll bring up the ES, and let's do SPY, just so you guys can see the ATRs here. We are returning to normal. You can tell simply because how the last month it's up, but it's not aggressively up. When we add an ATR here, average true range, you guys can do this on any platform has average true range. Some might call it ATR, others will call it average true range. I'll add ATR in here, and of course it does it in yellow because it's the old black charts, and we'll go to, I'll make it black. You guys see that line at the bottom? It might be hard to read, so I'll make it a little bit bigger for you just so you can see it better. There's your ATR at the bottom. Right now, the SPY is moving. I'm going to round up to 6 points a day. Okay? That's still high compared to what we had in November and December. Right? November and December, you're moving 1 or 2 points a day. That's nothing. But compared to what we saw in February and March, we were up at 19 points a day. So yes, we're returning to some semblance of normality. The major fear is out of the way. I would say the major fear is out of the way from the initial shock, right? But remember, what did we see happen in 2007, 8, and 9? We had an initial sell-off, right, an aggressive sell-off, and then it kind of bounced and oscillated for a little bit where that calm subsided, and then all of a sudden it fell again, and then the fear picked back up again. Let me see if I can bring up that chart for you guys here and show you what I'm talking about, because again, I do believe that we are still going to have a much bigger downside move. Let me go to 20 years back. Might take a second to load up the data. But let's go back to that 2008 period. Where am I? That's 18. What am I doing? Okay, there it is. You see, we had some pretty aggressive sell-offs, right? There were a bunch of those, but here's one of the major ones. We fell so aggressively, and this is a daily, by the way. We fell 16%. I don't have the number of bars there, but I'll give you the number of days. We can do it a couple different ways. I can do it by sheer, I'll do trading days. We'll do bar count. So it fell 16% in 17 trading sessions, basically a percent a day, all right? Thanks for the Niners photo, Gino. I'm nervous about it now. But look what happened, right? The ATR was really high, totally spiked, and then it dropped down as we went sideways. And then all of a sudden we see it start to spike back up again. So it will have this ebb and flow. I agree. I think right now we are starting to get back to some semblance of normality, at least with ATR. We're not back down to it yet. I think to me normal ATR for SPY is going to be something like 3-4 points. Also keep in mind, it was moving back here, as you can see the cursor in November and December. Let's call it moving 2 points a day. But that's when this thing was trading at 308. We're at 295 right now. So this is percentage-wise a bigger move. Natalia says, thoughts on election year regarding stock market. I think this year you throw it out. I don't know. Honestly, I couldn't tell you. Normally you have a positive market in an election year. This is an absolute black swan with regards to that. I have a friend who's a bit of a conspiracy theorist, and he says that this whole thing, the entire thing was manufactured in order to, again, this is not my view, this is just what a buddy of mine was saying, that this whole thing was manufactured by governments around the world to force central banks to pump trillions of dollars into the local economies so that they could pull this back and all of a sudden everything is fine and we just soar to the moon so our politicians can go, see, look what I've done for you guys. And I don't know. I think that might be a bit of a stretch. I don't think that this thing is absolutely a complete farce. Obviously, there's people who are dying and it's a serious issue. But is it as serious as they're making it out to be? I mean, I think we would all kind of shake our head at how crazy this has been, where it's like, okay, first off, you can't go home or can't go out of your house. And now you got to wear gloves and you got to wear a mask and all this stuff. So I don't know. Normally, I would say it's going to be a bullish year. This year, I still feel bearish. Otherwise, I wouldn't have such a large short position on the S&P right now. Will the Fed print money if interest rates are high? Theoretically, if interest rates are high, you caught me off guard there. If interest rates are high, they could print more money, which would, again, it would just simply manipulate the money. It would manipulate the money supply. But by printing more money, you're going to drop the value of the dollar. So they could technically do anything, right? They could print money at any point in time. But that would not help the situation because part of the reason that you have interest rates high is to help with inflation. One way to cure inflation is you remove money from the money supply, and that brings it down. It actually raises the value of the dollar. By printing money, you decrease the value of the dollar, which further exacerbates the problem that you were probably in the first place. There we go. What else? Let me see. I got any questions? Question, Merlin from Big Eb. Will the focus on the virus on the market, with the focus on the virus market, how do you think election results will move the market? Either way, you could have a major portion of the U.S. calling it corrupt. I think no matter what, you're going to have everybody calling it corrupt, right? It doesn't matter who wins. So, we learned that after the last election is, this corruption, so-and-so did this, so-and-so did that. I don't think you'll see any change here. I think it's going to be the same thing with elections going forward. If anything I've learned from this election, or from the previous election, is, and correct me if I'm wrong, many of you might not feel this way. For me, it felt like this election basically made it a point to really say, you're a Democrat? Well, screw you. Or you're a Republican? You suck. Whereas before that, it was like, hey, yeah, you're a Democrat, you're a Republican, whatever. I don't really like the president. He's not my party, blah, blah, blah. But now it seems like we're really polarizing things, and I feel like it's getting nastier and nastier and nastier as we go forward. So I'm hoping it kind of settles. Watching the arguments that go on Facebook and YouTube, or Facebook and Instagram about all this stuff, it drives me nuts. Here's two of my really good friends who, when you get them in public, they're totally fine, and all of a sudden one of them starts spouting off that he's one party and the other's the other, and now they hate each other, and they're cursing each other. It's like, come on, man. We're all human beings. Relax. Anyway, I don't know if that did anything. Where was the question? Okay, we had Joseph saying, will print money? Yes, they can print at any point. FX Telepath says, do you trade spot Forex? If not, why? I don't trade as much as I used to. I used to trade it a lot, and then I had issues. I don't want to mention the name of the broker. I had issues with the order fills. All of a sudden, my stock, We all have that idea that somebody saw your stop and took you out, right? Boy, I'm telling you, I would bring up another platform that was not this company, and I would look at their charts, and it never made it down to my price. But I got stopped out on this other platform multiple times. One time they gave it back to me and said, oh, well, what we do is we average the bid and the ask. I'm like, I'm watching the bid and the ask because I'm a trader. I know what I'm supposed to be looking at. And like, oh, well, we pre-print the middle. And so I just finally stopped trading with them. And, I've been trading predominantly futures and options and equities. No real, it's not like I have a disdain for the spot market. I think it's a great thing. But I've been doing really well with equities and options and futures. So there we go. That's it. Yes, Roxanne, the new normal. A little bit frustrating. Mercury doing so late. Last one, as I try to keep it under an hour. What are your views on MJ stock today? Not a huge. Obviously, we talked about this the other day that I'm now committing myself to being bullish on the sector. Wow, so I kept going. We actually talked about this when it broke above. This was on the 18th. Talked about, there was questions about MJ. This is as Aurora Cannabis came out, and I said, hey, if we get above some of these levels, there's some nice upside potential here. So I think we've turned the corner on cannabis. I think it really was a showing by ACB to start off that earnings and say, look, there is some revenue here. We were beaten down, and I think that now you have an opportunity for maybe a prolonged uptrend in MJ. Not saying it's going to be parabolic, but at least growth phase of the industry. Do I trade currency futures? Yes. Yep, I'll trade currency futures. No problem. What else do I got here? Rudy says, how are you trading options? I am predominantly, I would say 90% of my stuff is going to be buying directional. I'll buy directional depending on what time frame. I might go way deep out of the money like I did with the S&P this year. Probably the biggest, well, the one I'm in now is the biggest, but the one I did in February, that was a pretty big one as well, where I was just playing for the Black Swan event, which fortunately hit. I just got out too early. Made a great one there. And that was just buying deep out of the money put options, which is the same position I'm in right now. Sometimes, depending on my feelings about stocks, I will be a seller. Generally, I'll be selling, call options or put options, depending on which way I think it's going to go. But predominantly, I'm going directional. Yeah, this is this platform is TradeStation, but I have accounts everywhere, guys. I've got accounts all over the place, so it's not in any one particular place. All right, let me go to your economic calendar, and I'll try to wrap this up just because Big Eb wanted me to go in an hour today, and, he's a sponsor of the show. Right, Big Eb? He's a spirit moral support sponsor. All right, let me go to our screen over here, and I'll show you guys the earnings for Tuesday. I will not be doing a show on Monday. I figured I could, but no, you know what? I'm taking the day off. I'm going to go do something fun. I hope you guys do as well. Yeah, Livia, this is the platform that I'm using here is TradeStation. Which may change if they start trying to get me to pay institutional fees. Here's what's happening on Monday or Tuesday. Nothing big. There's really no biggie here. Not really worth mentioning, but I just wanted to show you since it's part of my routine now. Economic announcement. This is also for Tuesday. Monday is kind of a dead, boring day. U.S. on Tuesday, though, you do have some announcements. You have home price index, two of them actually. You have HPI numbers as well as the Case-Shiller Composite 20 home price index. Consumer confidence, which is a stupid number anyway. New home sales. This will be interesting because it's expecting a significant decline in new home sales. We'll see if it comes in line with that, but I think the regulations and unemployment numbers might be impacting that one significantly. We'll hear about that in the report. For the U.S., that's pretty much it. Canada, you've got one of your Bank of Canada governors speaking, and other than that, not too exciting on the economic front. That is your announcements for Tuesday. Monday will be, obviously, a long Memorial Day weekend. I hope that everybody has a fantastic weekend out there. If you have no last-minute questions, I know, Chris, no show Monday? Oh, heaven forbid. Yes, well, I have to look at it this way. Most of the people I know are going to have Monday off. And with the ads that I'm selling, I might make $18, maybe $12 to $15 in ad revenue from Monday. So in my interest, it's in my best interest to take that one off and enjoy it. So anyway, thank you guys so much for joining us today. Hope you had a fantastic weekend out there. We'll leave it at that. I had one last, it was right there. I almost said it, but I didn't say it. Anyway, hope you guys have a fantastic weekend. Happy Memorial Day. I know it's not a happy day, but I want to think about those that have fallen for our country, and hopefully you have a pleasant day on Monday. Have a fantastic weekend. I will see you guys on Tuesday. Take care, everybody. Give me a thumbs up, by the way. I need more thumbs up need. I got 7? Come on now.